Generosity in the church. And this afternoon we're going to be listening to Ruth, who's going to be sharing about stewardship, and from Tom, who is here to share with us as a consultant alongside stewardship. So we will be together for about an hour. We'll have about 45 minutes of these guys speaking to us, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions and for us to chat together. The aim will be to be finished by 4:30, and then it will be dinner time for 2.5 hours. So it's my pleasure to hand over to Ruth from Stewardship, and I believe I need to give you this. There we go.
Thanks, I think. I'm only going to be speaking for a couple of minutes. I just really wanted to say what an amazing day it's been so far. So I really hope you're enjoying yourselves. So my name's Ruth. I've been at Stewardship for about 3 years. And what we really care about at Stewardship is churches and charities, seeing them healthy, seeing them grow. And we've got a community of about 30,000 people who give money every single month to those churches and charities. And we want to see Pioneer Churches be part of that as well. And technology. Over the last 3 years, we decided to do some research into Christian giving. So CAF do an amazing job, and they do some research on what the giving from across the UK looks like. But when they talk about faith, they talk about all faiths. And there was nothing breaking down what the Christians are giving in the UK. And so we really wanted to do something about that. So we invested into doing 3 years of research, and Tom's going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment as part of what he's talking about. But what I'd really encourage you to do at the end is click on the QR code, download the report, have a read. If you've got any questions, you can come back to us at Stewardship, and we'd be more than happy to have a conversation. But what we really, really, really want to see happen is to see you guys thrive. We want to see more people giving more money, closing that giving gap that we've identified in the research. It's millions and millions of pounds. And we think this is a generational issue that actually goes back to how we're taught about giving when we're this big through to when we're this big, and how we can address that and how we can help you as leaders. So, I'm going to hand over to Tom, who's the real expert in this. He's a consultant that Stewardship have been working with, and he's absolutely brilliant. And I love listening to him. So I'm going to enjoy the session too.
No
Thank
pressure.
You, Tom.
Thank you, Ruth. Thanks, Ruth. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I was with Ness Wilson last week at the New Wine Leadership Conference, and it's just so encouraging to see and hear what is happening across the Pioneer Network, to see what's happening across the body of Christ at large. I have to confess, I am not a Pioneer church. I don't come from the movement, so it's a real pleasure to be here with you. I was considering what shirt to wear for this. I was in the Premier Inn, so I scoped you all out at breakfast, and I went with the plaid because I felt that was a safe option. I want to start with a big idea, and then I'm going to introduce myself because I'm very, very aware that none of you know who I am. I want to start with this thought. The way that this emerging generation, so Gen Z and Gen Alpha, view money is shifting. We know that from research from the Bible Society. We know that from the fantastic research that Stewardship have done as well. Their view of money is shifting. So, what happens if church leaders are not equipped to talk about money in the same way that Jesus did? That's the question that I want to start with. I'm going to introduce myself. As I say, my name's Tom. I have spent pretty much the last 15 years of my career, the first 15 years of my career in finance. I spent a decade as a wealth manager, managing money for wealthy people, investing from £5 to £25 million. Do you buy Disney or Netflix? I don't do that anymore. I'm not regulated. Don't bother asking me, because the answer is I don't know. I was doing that alongside my church journey, my faith journey. So I was raised in an Anglican setting, and then a very zealous youth leader, when I kind of tried to go off and do my own thing at 15, dragged me to another church, a bit more Pentecostal, charismatic, non-denominational, and I've been there for the last 22 years. So you can figure out how old I am. So I've been in this church. My wife and I met there. We raise our kids there. She's actually on staff there as well. And for the last 18 months or so, God has repositioned me because I was loving my career in finance. I was loving my career as executive coaching, headhunting, leadership development for private equity-backed organizations. And about 6 years ago, my senior pastor said to me, Tom, have you considered going into full-time ministry? And I said, nope, I'm very, very happy doing what I'm doing. Thanks very much. I'm all good. He went, okay, and left it. About 2 years ago, he and I went for a cup of coffee and he said, Tom, have you thought about going into full-time ministry? And I went, no. But at this time, I was a little bit more honest with him. And I said, for the last 15 years that I have been working, I have called God Jehovah Jireh. And for the last 15 years, I have had a full-time income paying my bills. I don't know how deeply I know that God is Jehovah Jireh. And I hate that. That sits so uncomfortably with me. And I should have just kept my mouth shut because 18 months later I got made redundant. And I could not get a job for love nor money. Didn't matter what I tried. Now, I was headhunting. So how many of you know a headhunter that cannot get a job is not really worth very much? So I started this rhythm of applying for jobs in the morning and then praying and reading my Bible in the afternoons because I thought I need to discover who Jehovah Jireh is. That's what I have to figure out. Because now I don't have a full-time salary paying my bills. And so I'd spend my mornings applying and my afternoons reading my Bible. And as I did this, 1 month became 3, 3 became 5, 5 became 6, and my afternoons started creeping into my mornings to the point where actually I wasn't applying for jobs anymore at all. And how many of you know a headhunter who can't even apply for jobs when he needs a job is definitely not worth anything? So I ended up sitting down with my wife one morning and saying, you know, after about 200 hours of study, I felt very, very confident and comfortable that I knew who Jehovah Jireh was. He had shown himself faithful time and time again when bills needed to be paid. Guess what? He was able to supply all my needs according to his riches in glory. And so I sat down with her and I said, you know what? I think that this is what I'm meant to be doing full time. And she went, what are you meant to be doing full time? I said, I think I'm called to help the body of Christ understand and talk about money in a healthy, biblical, theologically sound way. And so that's what I've been doing. And the largest portion of what I've been doing has actually involved supporting stewardship on this project. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what we have found. I want to talk to you about the implications of that. I then want to challenge you with some really uncomfortable questions. Don't worry, you don't have to tell me the answers, but you do have to think about them for yourself and you've got to make some notes. And then I want to show you some resources that you can consider as well. So there's this strategic project that Stewardship are doing. It's called the Generous UK Church. How many of you would love to have a generous UK church across the body of Christ? Amen. And what the vision of this is that money is taught with grace and clarity, is that congregations are freed up, they're released from the love of money, the deceitfulness of wealth and riches, and that Christian missions are well resourced. That includes churches. This QR code will take you to a survey that we have been doing. We've done it across the country. We've had over 135 or so responses. I was pushing for 300, which was a little ambitious, story of my life. But if you want to contribute, then you absolutely can. We would love to have your input. They've basically then combined the research from their own generosity report into this project that we've been running, where we've then harvested data, and we are looking at how we can equip church leaders to walk in freedom in this area, to preach and teach about money the way Jesus did. And what I want to do is I want to show you some of that research and some of that information. And then I want to challenge you, as I said. Does that sound good? Yes or yes? Okay, great. So this is from last year's generosity report. This is the 2025 generosity report. When we asked people, these are Christians, to reflect on the last 12 months, which of these words best describe how you felt about your charitable giving? Now, it is broken down into category here, so you can see committed Christians, practicing Christians, church-going Christians, cultural Christians. So you can see the different color coding. What is really, really interesting to me is the dramatic differences that we have between this and this. In last year's report, it says that Christians, committed Christians, are the most likely to review their giving. 29% of them reviewed their giving to Christian causes within the last month, compared with 11% overall. They're also very hungry for teaching. 50% of committed Christians, 50% of them would like their church to teach or preach about money and Christian approaches to finances on a monthly basis. Just let that sink in. Half of committed Christians want you to talk about money more. We were also struck by the emotions around giving. Isn't this interesting here? Responsibility, gratitude, joy, right? All of these slightly more positive or kind of neutral feelings, confidence, excitement, versus these negative things. Isn't it interesting that the vast majority of preachers and teachers feel this when their congregations feel this? And we know that to be true because we've asked many, many people. They do not feel guilty. They do not feel embarrassed. They do not feel frustrated or anxious when you talk about money. Isn't that interesting? Because the vast majority of people that we speak to who are leaders and teachers say, well, that's how I feel. Not everyone, but a lot of them do. So Stewardship launched this strategic project in response to this data. And this is basically what it looks like. This is the kind of the purpose of the project. It is to shift this culture of teaching on finances towards one of faith and capability, of confidence and feeling comfortable doing it more regularly. Phase one of the discovery has pretty much been and gone. But like I said, if you did scan that first QR code, you're very, very welcome to get involved and be here. Phase two, now we are well and truly into, we are prototyping. And we're having some really very exciting conversations with a number of movements to talk about what this could look like across their movement, where we provide very, very healthy, strong, theologically sound, biblically based teaching to equip leaders to do this more. We're then now we've done that, we're coming into the co-design, as I mentioned, and piloting. If you couldn't tell by the nose, I am half Polish. I am a frustrated builder at heart. We need these to be things that people use. I have no time whatsoever for building stuff that becomes just a dusty kind of document that gets put in a drawer and never gets revisited. We're building stuff that's actually going to get used. And this is kind of what it looks like. So we've done the survey, like we said, all around the country. We went over to Ireland. Wow, look how grainy that picture is. That's not come out well. It's crystal clear on my screen. But we asked these church leaders a number of questions. We launched this survey, and then we went on the road and we spoke to them. And what I want to do is I want to show you what church leaders were telling us. Now, it is important to note, and I spoke actually to somebody from the Bible Society who does this for a living. They do statistical analysis, they do surveys, she's got a PhD, she's super, super smart. And I said to her, I am pretty certain that there is a bias in our data because, so at New Wine, this is very indicative. At New Wine, the seminar on prophecy, packed. The seminar on praise and worship, packed. The seminar on money, half empty. The seminar before this was full. There were people standing at the back. So we have a bias towards people who enjoy talking about it. And because they enjoy talking about it, they respond more positively. But actually, the people who aren't here, the vacant seats, are probably the one that need this more. But you can go and tell them. You know who they are. So you can go and tell them for us. You catch the fire and you go and take it. But we asked these leaders, how often does your church explicitly teach on money? 44% of them said a few times a year, which is very encouraging. It's even more encouraging that none of them said zero. So people are talking about it. It's very, very encouraging. However, we have to ask ourselves, does discipleship actually happen on a Sunday in a sermon? The answer is no. We know this to be true, right? In a myriad of years worth of time we've all spent walking with Jesus, we know that true transformation, the grafting into the vine that John 15 talks about, happens in small group. It happens in relationship rather than just sitting in a sermon on Sunday. So within your sermon, within your preaching, they're saying they're talking about it more. We also saw that 44% of them said they were comfortable and they do it often. Again, fantastic, but there is a bias because actually 56%, and I think it is higher than 56%, feel like they are unequipped or ill-equipped. They feel uncomfortable. They feel underqualified. All of the things that were down here that I circled, guilty, embarrassed, all the rest of it. You know, a regular thing that I hear when I speak to them, because I've had one-on-ones, I've had group calls, we've done everything, is they feel like they're singing for their supper. They feel as though if I talk about money on a Sunday and I'm trying to raise an offering or encourage giving, then people go, oh, okay. And I always, and please forgive me, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, I say, so you get paid based on the income of your church. And they go, no, I don't. And I go, so why would you feel uncomfortable talking about people giving more? No church has a leader who is paid a commission based on the level of income in the church. Americans would love that, I'm sure. A lot of English churches would hate that, I'm sure. But it doesn't happen. So why feel guilty when we talk about it? We're going to touch on this a little bit more. So this is a blend now of the research that we have done in this strategic project, coupled with the research that Stewardship did in 2025. Now what I want to do is show you this giving gap. This is coming straight out of the Stewardship's 2026 giving report. Look how big this giving gap is on a monthly basis, based on all of their research, this potential average giving. Now, this is based on the tithe. This is based on what people give currently versus what the potential for giving could be. And the data shows us that there is a gap. I wager if you are here as a church leader, your church finances shows you that there is a gap. I would imagine as a shepherd of your flock, you can sense that there is a gap. So we then asked them, okay, all these individuals that have responded to us, which of these resources would support you to teach on money? And what's really interesting is that people are lazy because they go for the passive stuff. And it's all the stuff they can already get. Because if you go onto ChatGPT, it can produce a really good sermon. I've tried, I've asked it. I didn't preach it, don't worry. It's okay, it's okay. But downloadable resources, sermon outlines, short training courses, all of this stuff is passive. It's all the passive stuff. This is the equivalent of a Sunday sermon. This isn't where the change happens. Leaders need to be discipled in groups just as much as individuals. And so what we are thinking about is how do we give them what they want and give people what they need? We want to do both. What I want to ask you is what if this giving gap that I showed you, that has been empirically shown to be true, what if that gap in giving was characterized by silence? What if the gap was there because churches just are not talking about money enough? We can see that on a confidence scale, financial generosity is one of the lowest. They're all hot potatoes, let's face it, but financial generosity is very near the bottom. But we know, and I'm going to show you some information and research from the most recent generosity report, that actually there are far more positive impacts from hearing teaching on money than there are negative. So what if this gap is actually just one shown by practice? Between the gap between how leaders feel when they talk about giving and how congregants feel when they hear about giving. It was really interesting in the 2024 report from Stewardship that it was reported that congregations, 50% of them had not heard a preach or a teach on money in the last 2 years in church. 50% hadn't heard a sermon or a talk on money in the last 2 years in church. And yet when we go back to the original bit, pastors, preachers, leaders and teachers are telling us that they're talking about it regularly. 44% said they did it often, at least once a year. So if nothing else, there is a gap between what leaders think they're doing and what congregations actually hear going on. So what I want to do is just draw your attention to this one here: discipleship and spiritual growth. This data that I'm about to show you, and if you haven't read the generosity report, I'm about to give you another big QR code that's even bigger that you can scan to get the download. And I really encourage you to do it. But this data that we're producing is a generosity report. It is not a discipleship report. So it is absolutely right that we focus on giving. However, as I've said, we know that change actually comes about in people's lives when they're discipled, not when they're just asked to give. Change doesn't happen because people are asked to give. Change happens when people are discipled, and as a result of that, they start to give. Anytime you teach on a topic, there is a natural response to that topic. Doesn't really matter what the topic is. But when you are discipled on a topic, there is a natural response. When people are discipled on money, generosity is the natural outcome. It's the natural response. So I'm going to encourage you to access the report. It's completely free. Just put in your email, put in your name. I'll stand to one side. Please do scan this, grab this report, and then I'm going to show you a bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start asking you some horrible questions that are going to make you feel a little uncomfortable, hopefully, and spur some change. Then what we're going to do is we are going to show you some bits out of this report that marry really quite nicely with this. So, oh yeah, I've got a quote as well. When we avoid, sorry, let me go back. Go on, you get your phone, you ready? I don't want to rush this. It's important you get it.
I can help you.
We can do it afterwards as well, don't you worry. We'll make sure no one's left behind. The truth, this is just the honest truth. When we avoid teaching about money and generosity, we are not sparing people awkwardness. We are just leaving a gaping hole in their discipleship. This is as much about spiritual formation. In fact, this is more about spiritual formation than it is about raising an offering or repairing a roof. So, this big idea. This was one of the key themes, if not the key theme, that came out of the stewardship report in 2026. It's that trust is the cornerstone of healthy financial discipleship. And it would be crazy of me not to actually bring a Bible verse as well. I'm not just here to give you data. We know that trust is the cornerstone. But look at the way that Proverbs chapter 3 maps this out for us. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So it starts with trust. It then shows us guidance. In all your ways, acknowledge him. He will direct your paths. He then says, it talks about wisdom. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. That leads to strength. And then finally, honor the Lord with your possessions, with the first fruits of all your increase. Look at the outcome based on a foundation of trust. You do not bring your first fruits, which is your first and your best, if you do not have a foundation of trust. Our congregations are not going to bring their first fruits. So are we discipling people that God is trustworthy with our finances? Are we, as leaders, displaying that we are trustworthy of their finances? So, what are we going to do about it? Question number one of these tough questions. Now, I have zero problem whatsoever with people taking pictures of the screen. I've been quite indulgent with the amount of time I've left on the screen for pictures. No problem. However, what we cannot have now is people taking pictures of the screens and then doing nothing with it. So if you've got a notepad, write it down. If you've got a note in your phone, take it down. But we're actually going to take 2 to 3 minutes per question to think about it. Take a picture by all means. You can go and stew on it afterwards. You can go and ask your leaders. You can do whatever you want. But we do need to actually think and make some notes for ourselves. Is that okay? Can we all agree to commit to actually do that? Perfect. Thank you. So, first question. Please ask yourself, what is one area of your church's financial practices that could be strengthened or improved in 2026? We are literally going to take 3 minutes, 4 minutes now to do that. You can talk amongst yourselves if you're here in teams. You can just write stuff down. You could just sit in silence for a little bit and reflect. At New Wine, they were very comfortable to share. I'm just going to put that out there. It's not competitive. You guys can choose not to share. That's absolutely fine. But we're just going to take 3 minutes and leave that up on the screen, and we can then reconvene. Switched itself off. So it's still recording. It was just recording the wrong place because the gimbal turned off. That's really funny.
I was going to move it and I thought maybe you meant to record it.
GDPR. Can't show anyone's faces. That's really funny.
Thumbs up to me. QR code, but maybe you could tap it behind the end.
Yeah.
Her phone was just it was just really struggling. It was scanning it.
Yeah. That's fine.
It wasn't picking it up. I don't like it.
No, it's all good.
I think you're right though.
There's no reason not to.
Yes, I agree. I shall get it printed off and stick it on the back.
Stick it on the back. Yeah, because you don't need both. You don't need a name on both sides.
I do not.
Yeah. I have that on my business card now. Actually, it was my wife's idea. Getting
Oh, for your business must.
Well, it actually no. Yeah, except it actually just takes people to it just downloads my contact details onto their phone, so it's not actually the right thing. But having a QR code, should put your details on one front and the QR on the back, and then I can change the QR to whatever I want. But
You know the training that you're thinking of creating now with all of this? Is it who's delivering it?
don't know.
Are you going to carry on?
Don't know. That's well above my pay grade. I think
Because
it's going to be.
You do not be my team.
Oh no! So I have to work with you more.
You do.
Oh, blazes. No, I have no idea.
It'll actually specifically be me and Claire.
Yeah. I have no idea.
It'll only be probably. I mean, we may train Emily and.
But the thing is, we're not necessarily going to be creating. Well, it might be that we curate some resources. It might. I don't know that we're going to create a course, but we're going to formulate a curriculum.
But we're not just going to give it to them to deliver.
No. We will go to their conferences.
Yeah. So. And that we will definitely just be me and my team, by the way.
Yeah, fine. Right, they've had long enough. Okay. Thank you so much. You guys had a slow start, but you've ramped into it, which is good. Is anybody comfortable sharing? You don't have to. Is anybody brave enough to share? Okay, gentleman at the back, nice and loud. What would you like to... Hey, guys, can we listen to this guy at the back?
So, our church finances look like a company's house document, so we can improve the way that they look when they're shared.
Yeah.
And then our finance manager is less generous or honouring with finances. He likes it when receipts aren't handed in to him, because then the church doesn't pay out. So if the receipt gets forgotten, that's like, okay. And I would kind of look for a change in heart as more generous in that regard, and more honouring of like where expenses are being paid. Like, he runs it like a business, which is good.
Sure.
But also maybe just a bit more generous.
Yeah, great. Anyone else? I think it was
We recently, last year, we had a communication evening, which was to give a financial report, and we'd had a gift day, and and then we were able to communicate with the whole church what we were going to do with that money.
Brilliant.
And the investment then from the whole church has been, they're in this journey with us.
Yeah.
The transparency of your generosity. We did like a totalizer, and it rolled. I mean, we all got involved in that. The roll up of the numbers, and
Brilliant.
there was an audible
Amazing.
like that, and then from there, we're now. It's took a while, but we're now revamping the hall so
Amazing.
we can see what we've done with it. It's not our money; we're the stewards of it. So it's really It's really exciting.
It's hugely.
And just brings that energy.
And did it build
to
faith in the community? That gasp, that kind of that elevation of expectation, and brilliant.
And that's transparency, communication, and it's then opened the door to the Tesco's blue tokens.
Yeah,
those sort of
things.
things. We've won that.
Yeah, amazing.
£100, like
Amazing.
Yeah,
For the youth and the growth that's coming from that. So it's a momentum it brings.
Yeah.
You get on the journey together.
Brilliant. Anybody else? Please.
Sort of connected but a different almost part of the transparency question of like we have a pretty good rhythm of like giving Sunday and sharing the vision, but we're always intention of how much do we share as a leadership with like we spend X amount of pounds on milk for the staff 2 weeks or I don't know, like like we're always like, how much do you share?
Yeah.
And where there's, you were talking about trust. Like, when does that build or start to erode trust potentially?
Sure.
So, yeah, and we keep coming around to that conversation every time we're giving something, like, how much do we share?
Yeah.
How much do we detail the details? So
Very interesting. Very interesting. Can I ask, did anybody here in the room answer this question, more financial discipleship? Okay, the back row, you guys, gold stars. Gold stars. Did anybody answer talk about money more? The back row, you guys are winners. Okay, you did.
Can I just park a question?
Please. We will have time for Q&A at the end as well.
But this financial discipline, I think when you have a mix of people of incomes, social background in the church,
Yeah.
it can often feel very difficult speaking from one background.
Of course.
To another background.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And we will be covering that in just a minute. Don't you worry. No one will be left behind. So, what I want to show you, again, we're still on this theme that trust is the cornerstone of healthy financial discipleship. Regular teaching and talking on generosity helps to build trust. As I said, 50% of committed Christians would like their church to teach about Christian approaches to finance and giving, either monthly or quarterly. It's something they want. So, second big question is this: what happens when we talk about money without tying it to a big ask? What happens when we talk about money without tying it to we've got to repair the roof, or even we're going on mission, or even we've had a load of new Christians come in, we've got to buy more Bibles? I am up for buying as many Bibles as we can, but what happens when we teach about money without tying it to a big ask? Let's take a couple of minutes and then I'll come back and we can carry on with the next bit.
I think that's more about discipleship. That's just specific like.
Interesting. It's like, okay, so you think, I don't know how you do your Vision Sundays, but I'd highly recommend that you go along to a Hillsong Vision Sunday.
Oh, they're amazing.
Have you been?
I haven't been directly.
Go.
I have seen, because...
The reason I say that is because it feels like an annual big ask.
Well, it would be. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with an annual big ask.
No,
there is a place for it.
The way that they do the giving within the church service is so good. They do it through storytelling, but when it comes to, and please give, they fall down every time. I've not heard one of their pastors. They do their giving bit brilliantly every time. But then there's the and give. But that's about giving to your church that you're sitting in. The annual big ask is give to Compassion, give to Vision, blah blah, whatever the Indian thing is. Yeah,
they're directing them outward.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so no, but it's giving to mission.
Yeah.
So the Vision Sunday is giving to the breadth of the church. So it's giving to the YXYA program. It's giving to Compassion, Vision Rescue, World Vision, and green, blah blah, whatever their local thing is that they do, and the food banks. And yes, they've devolved slightly under the new leadership, but it's interesting. The big ask can still, even it's supposed to be a Vision Sunday for the church, and people seem to think that's enough, but it's not.
Interesting. I didn't know it was outward focused as well, because I know they do their Heart for the House and all that sort of stuff.
Heart for the House includes Vision Rescue.
Yes.
Or it did. I don't know about now.
Yeah.
I say that.
Yeah.
That was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But,
interesting.
And it's probably changed under the new leadership.
Well,
but
yeah.
It's just I highly recommend you go along and listen.
Yeah, I think I will. The guy who is the incoming CFO of Stewardship, he helped build.
Oh, that dude. He's American, right?
Canadian. He helped build Hillsong Oxford, and was on the leadership team of Hillsong Tunbridge. So that's how I'm familiar with that. Plus other bigger churches in Canada.
I helped yeah, found Hillsong Liverpool.
Yeah, he's really good. You have a very, very good CFO coming in.
Good to know.
Yeah, and he's just the nicest guy.
Probably won't have that much to do with it, to be honest.
No, well, whatever you do have to do with him will be enjoyable, because he's really very good.
My team's really quite siloed from the rest of the organisation in a way, because we're just so outward focused, and everyone else is so internally focused on product and customer journey. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, boring. Let's go and talk about why you should become part of the ecosystem. Whatever it is that you are, and so we triage everybody. So there'll be a number of people in here that could be givers, or they could be potential payroll or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, what happens when we talk about money without tying it to a big ask? Anybody want to share? You know what the right answer is. Interesting. Go on.
Well, unless you, as you say, as you tag it on to, right, this offering is going to go to Christian Aid, this offering is going to go to our charity that we support, Hope Central. This is going to go to, well, we don't need a roof, but a roof. People tend to respond to that. Just talking about even biblical principles regarding money, no response.
Interesting.
I was really challenged about the fact that it's being open-handed as the church to let them take that way in their discipleship and their relationship with Jesus. Like, where might money be holding a stronghold or an idol over their life? And to I manage the finances of our church. It was weird trying to think about it without tying it to it, but actually being open-handed and being like, we're trusting God with the discipleship of that person. If it relates to something later on down the line about how they donate to church, great. But I guess we talk about other areas where we're trying to help people in freedom, and I don't know. This is just another area. It just shouldn't have a special. Like, it only comes out when we want money. That feels a really interesting thing about our hearts. Maybe.
It's very challenging.
It's a very challenging question.
Last one at the back.
Just to wrap up what Nathaniel was saying there is, when we talk about people's giving, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to give more to church, maybe give more to other things, generosity within their daily life. I think that's where that would come through more.
Brilliant.
But that's then a challenge when you've got a face gap as a church.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, give it to us instead.
See, you're absolutely right. And so often some of the churches that I consult with have that sense of conflict of almost feeling like they're competing with other charities for the wallets or a share of the wallet of the people in their church and their organisation. Did anybody, out of interest, put deeper spiritual formation as an answer?
Well, I was concerned that if you always linked it to a big ask, it's a bit like we're only talking about money because we want something. Whereas actually we need to be talking about our attitude and life with money.
Yes.
And then you might have some money when there is a big ask.
Very interesting.
Sorry.
Please, just at the back. Yep.
We were talking about this. You said that if you only talk about money for a big ask, it's just very transactional.
Very transactional. Yep.
Whereas if you talk about money and giving on a more regular basis, it's about discipleship and then perhaps people are more likely to give, okay? And then there's less of a need to ask for a big ask because the resources are already there, or there's less of a gap to bridge.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that one is interesting. You were saying there about if you talk about it more regularly, perhaps the giving goes up more regularly and then the gap gets smaller, so you don't necessarily need to have the big ask. I think that...
It's not been our experience.
Well, it really depends on the level of your vision, and I'm not casting shade on people's lack or size of vision. I think that God loves it when people live visionary apostolic lives. I mean, this is the Pioneer Network. If you're going out and pioneering stuff, let me tell you, your vision is always going to exceed your provision. God loves operating in that gap, absolutely. Go on, sir, you had a point.
So my question about the deeper spiritual transformation is if the church is teaching that, my question is whether you need to have up the prominence of the principle of giving, people are being spiritually transformed, will that not be an actual outpouring of that transformation anyway? And what's the level of explicitness you have to give to this subject?
Yeah.
If you are getting that spiritual transformation.
So the answer is yes, and constantly is the answer to your last point. So yes, the natural outcome of spiritual formation when talking about money, finances in a healthy biblical way is that giving goes up. That doesn't then mean, well, you've done it and giving's gone up, therefore you can stop. It means you keep growing, because as you keep growing, your outreach continues. And then guess what? People come in who aren't churched. People come in who don't have that spiritual formation, and they need support. They need help, so you continue doing it for them. And then guess what happens? You go, great, well, we were in this building. Now we need to buy that building over there because we can't fit in this building and we've got fantastic growth problems. And so we need to raise an offering. So it perpetuates this cycle of growth. If we look at Genesis chapter 1, and we look at the first commission that God gave to mankind, it was subdue, have dominion, be fruitful, multiply, it was a mission of expansion. It was not a mission of sit tight and just maintain. And I talk about this a lot, but we don't have time, so I'll shut up. So, okay. Money is all of these things. It took me about 5 minutes to write these. I've probably missed a vast number of things off this list, both good and bad, that all of you would likely have put. But again, it took about 5 minutes to put this onto a thing, because money is all of these things and more. But the truth is, it's unique to every single one of us and yet common to every single one of us. Unlike many other aspects of our lives, where we're from, where we were born and raised, who our parents are, what we did for a job, how we came to meet Christ, there's a whole myriad of things that are completely unique and individual to us. And yet money is a hugely unifying thread through all of our lives. Whether we have lots of it or whether we have none of it. Whether we were raised in a very wealthy, affluent area or whether we were raised in depravity and poverty. Why is this important? Why is this important? It is because this new research from the Generosity Report has revealed 5 different giving personas. There are actually 3 distinct lenses that likely overlap in your lives. If you're wearing glasses, you're like me, you're the nerdy, theological driven giver. Welcome to the club. Maybe you are a theological giver and you wear contact lenses. That's okay, we'll allow you in. It's all good. It really isn't a problem. Maybe you are an impact driven giver, and to your point in the fantastic cardigan at the back there, if you only talk about money and then don't ask for something, there's no opportunity for giving because those people are driven by impact. And so they get caught up by a cause, by something. Maybe you're driven by a relationship, and so you tell a story about a relationship that you have built with an orphanage or with a cause, and so suddenly these people respond to that. They are distinct but overlapping, and it's very likely that you and I and all the people in your congregation have a spike in one of them, but then you have a little kind of long tail in the others. Every member of your church has this, and we need to speak to each of them all the time. You are more likely to capture every single one of those personas, young, old, and the 3 lenses, when you talk about money. And then critically, you will build trust with them. And to your point, sir, in the black cardigan, this cardigan season, this is not just about avoiding donor fatigue. Donor fatigue is a very, very real thing that charities know about. By not always asking for a specific thing or for a specific cause, this is about laying building blocks of trust that lead people to Jesus. That is why we need to talk about money more. Jesus honestly did not need to raise extra cash for his traveling itinerant ministry. It is highly likely that he was a millionaire from birth, which is what funded his 8-year exodus to Egypt. His dad counts cattle on 1,000 hills and just bunches them by the hillside. He had a personal banker, Jesus. He had a robe that was so good it was worth gambling over. He had people who were funding his ministry consistently coming straight out of Herod's palace. So the person that was trying to persuade him or trying to block him was also funding him. We do not serve a poor God. God is not in heaven saying, raise an offering because the lighting bill has gone up. It's not happening. We do not serve a poor God or a poor king. So why did Jesus talk about money so much? Because he didn't need it. He talked about money more than he talked about heaven and hell combined. Those are pretty important topics. More than 10% of the Bible is given over to the topic of money, stuff, wealth, things, possessions, belongings. We cannot spiritualize what is a natural issue. You just can't do it. You cannot divorce the spiritual from the practical and from the material in this context. Jesus said you're either going to love one and despise the other and serve one and hate the other. This was critically important, not because they need the money. This has nothing and everything to do with money. The reason why is because money is a heart issue, which is a trust issue. We have, as leaders, we have to form people's hearts and direct them towards Jesus. And there is a very strong chance that their hearts, in some form or another, have at one point or another been in the grip of mammon. Because it was the only spirit that Jesus said would compete with God in our lives. There are two things that are terrifying. God said the religion of man makes the power of God to no avail. So our religion, our practices, the things that we enshrine as stuff that we just do can completely wipe out his power, and that the spirit of mammon will compete for our hearts, for trust, for relationship, for service. This is critically important for spiritual formation in people's lives. So, do you remember Proverbs chapter 3, the foundation being trust? I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but I want to ask this question. What is the outcome if we do not disciple Christians in the area of finances? What happens for them? What happens in the body of Christ if we do not do this? Let's take another few minutes, turn and talk to your neighbours, and then we're going to come back. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I said over there about and what you just said about worrying, like what charities people are giving to. Has anyone actually done an audit of their church? Of right, imagine this. Okay, so I went to speak for Tear Fund at a church in Lancaster. It's quite a wealthy church, admittedly, but on the day we raised £3,000 from 3 church services to go to Tear Fund, the church leader said to me, "I would love to have a proper project that our church gets behind," and I went, "I'm really sorry that
we're already there, and the threshold's probably too high."
It's 5.
Yeah.
The threshold's 5. So he went away and he found out who gave to Tear Fund from across his entire congregation and how much they were giving. It totaled 14,000.
There you go.
I still couldn't do it
Because it wasn't a single gift.
I can't combine the church's giving. I can't combine the church's giving
From a one-off offering.
With the individuals.
Yes.
Individuals direct debits are totally separate.
Yes.
What if, prior to coming on any of this workshopy stuff that we're talking about people do, we come up with some sort of form that people could give out anonymously? We don't need to know who you are.
No, it could be a
but
job
how much
form.
how much you giving to church, and who are you giving to, and how much? Because how awesome would that be to work out?
Okay.
You could do stuff with that data.
What for? Yeah. What do we do? What do we do with that?
Because he's just said, I'm worried about like
Well,
what's
yeah,
going.
we're competing with.
We're competing. What if they're not? What if they actually aren't? And how do we help them with the answer if they are? Because what if they actually got people to do their giving with stewardship, but actually tried to do it split it equally? So say you're giving £4 to your church and you're giving £10 to Tear Fund, £10 to Bible Society and £10 to World Vision. Say you were doing that. But then actually if all your givings, if I got all that going out my bank account, I'm not looking at it. But if I've got it going all out of my stewardship account, I can see it there.
Yeah.
Why am I not giving the same to my church?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, very interesting. It's very interesting, yeah, and it's definitely worth considering. That
There's probably more thinking you could do around that. You seem to take.
I take time to think.
Yeah. But I'm more of a
Well, no, but it's really important to have that. And the ideas around that are very, very
if you had
critical.
the data of your church and you could see how much people are giving, you've got a problem if they're giving more to charity than they are to you.
Yes. Well, yes.
And then there needs to be maybe there's maybe do you know what
But
we
that's
could
a
do?
trust
We could
issue.
do it. We could do it like
That's
that.
a trust issue.
Yes, we could do it like Veritas. So you could do training that you input into all of the other training schemes that all of these other denominations have got, for example. Then we could offer one-on-one support coaching.
Oh, we're building that in. I'm going to get Stephen Delaney.
But how much more of a solid data-based? Sorry, I'm all about the data.
Yeah.
If it's data-based of actually, I can see that everybody's giving less to the church than they are to the charity. Sorry,
We're running out of time.
So we've got 5 more minutes.
Okay, fine. I'm going to crack on. Yeah. Okay. I have been talking too much. Flora's just realised and told me that we have 5 minutes left, so we're going to zip through this. I'm not going to ask you what you thought, what you said, but I am going to ask, did anybody put worse spiritual formation? Well done you. Did anybody put leadership failure? It's worse spiritual formation, worsening spiritual formation. What the outcome of this is worse spiritual formation. Correct. Yes, we're hamstringing ourselves.
You're letting them miss out on joining in with what God's doing.
Yes.
And you're letting them be vulnerable to the love of money.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the fear that comes with that.
Hence leadership failure. So we looked earlier at Proverbs chapter 3 with a side-by-side comparison. Do you remember we kind of did this? I want to terrify you just a little bit. Thankfully, this next section that I'm going to show you is referring to wisdom and knowledge, not God. Just want to be super, super clear about this. This is taken from Proverbs. This next bit is going to be talking about wisdom and knowledge, not God. However, it still bears reminding that God wants us to know about wisdom and knowledge in God. Okay? Proverbs chapter 1, when your terror comes like a storm and your destruction comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call on me being wisdom, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would have none of my counsel and despised my every rebuke. Therefore, they shall eat the fruit of their own way, and they will be filled to the full with their own fancies. Look at this. Terror, no guidance, no wisdom, no strength, lack. Terrifying. Now, it is very interesting. If any of these verses sound familiar to you, it's because God says repeatedly through Exodus and through Deuteronomy and through Numbers, when you seek me, you will find me. When you call upon my name, I will be heard by you. So God is showing us that he does the complete opposite, which is really very comforting. I want to show you something even more comforting. Proverbs 1, it says, but whoever listens to me, wisdom, will dwell safely, will be secure, will not have the fear of evil. Don't you love the buts of God? When he says, but God, we see it time and time again through the Bible. These verses give us hope and assurance when we follow God's path. When we avoid teaching about generosity and money, we are leaving a gaping hole in the thing. So what can you do about it? I'm going to show you one thing, then I'm going to put the stewardship code back up in just a second. The reason that I've ended up working with stewardship is because the CEO, Janie Oliver, watched and heard some teaching that I have created for churches and congregations. She said it's the most biblically based, theologically sound teaching on money she's ever seen. Can I support her? Can I help? So now churches are licensing this. This is what it's called. It's called the Biblical Financial Masterclass. It's all fully filmed in a studio. It's fully recorded. There is a workbook that sits alongside it, and it takes you through what the Bible says about money. This basically is the outcome of me being fun employed. So you will notice there isn't a single module on giving or generosity. I actually tell churches regularly, stop talking about giving and generosity more. Matthew 25 is really clear that God gives to each according to their ability to handle it. If you want to talk to me a bit more about that afterwards, we can. But we talk about stewardship, not ownership. We talk about healthy relationships, sowing and reaping. Mammon, spirit of mammon, massive issue in the church, massive issue in the body of Christ is the spirit of mammon. No one talks about it. But then we also talk about practical stuff, budgeting. How do you actually save? How do you live? How do you get rid of debt in your life? Some of these things are, this module here is actually a time of guided ministry. So there is a time, if you come to the end of all of this, you get to this point here and you go, geez, I've been in the grip of the spirit of mammon. Either you personally, I know I was, I've certainly been in the grip of mammon. And you go, you know what, I've not been stewarding God's money the way that he wants me to steward it. There's a time of guided ministry. Same with debt, because debt is both spiritual and it's financial as well. If you want to have a conversation with me, you can scan that. But what I want to do is I want to go back to the stewardship slide. You can come up afterwards and speak to me. What I want to give you is another opportunity here for this one to access the stewardship generosity report. This is super, super key. 4:30 on the nose. Flora, I'm going to hand back to you.